There is a question I have carried with me for many years, one that first came to me not in a library, not in a place of learning, but on a quiet afternoon, sitting beside an old man in a garden. He had nothing by the world's measure. His coat was worn. His hands were rough and sun-darkened. He grew a few vegetables, kept a small fire in the evening, and watched the sky change colors with the contentment of someone who has received a great gift. I sat beside him and said nothing for a long while. And then I asked him something that had been growing inside me like a slow-rising bread. I asked him whether he was happy. He looked at me with eyes that were calm and without hurry, and he said simply that he had everything he needed. Not everything he had ever wanted, but everything he needed. I have thought about that answer ever since, because it seemed to me in that moment that this old man understood something that many people spend their whole lives chasing and never quite finding. He understood what it means to be rich. Now, I do not use that word the way the world uses it, and that perhaps is precisely where we must begin. Because before we can speak honestly about what true richness is, we must first sit quietly with what the world tells us richness is. We must look at it clearly, without bitterness, without envy, without judgment. We must simply look and ask ourselves whether what we have been told is actually true. The world speaks about wealth in a very particular way. It holds up certain people as examples of success. It points to large houses, to fine carriages and automobiles, to accounts filled with figures that most of us will never see in a single lifetime. It says, here is someone who has made it. Here is someone who has arrived. And when we pass such a person on the street, or read about them in a newspaper, or see them on a screen, something stirs inside us. Sometimes it is admiration. Sometimes it is longing. Sometimes it is a quiet ache, a feeling that we have fallen behind in a race we did not fully consent to enter. This is the nature of the world's definition of wealth. It is always comparative. It always requires that someone else have less than you do. A man is rich not merely because he has much, but because he has more. And this is a strange foundation upon which to build a life, because it means that the floor of your satisfaction is always shifting. What felt like abundance yesterday becomes ordinary today and insufficient tomorrow. I have known men of great fortune who could not sleep at night, not because of illness or age, but because their minds would not rest. They lay awake, calculating, worrying, measuring what they had against what they feared losing. They had rooms they never entered, clothes they never wore, food they could not finish. And yet they felt, in the deepest part of themselves, that it was never quite enough. They were always reaching forward, always looking ahead to the next purchase, the next acquisition, the next proof that they had secured their place in the world. And I have known the opposite as well. I have known families who shared one small room, who ate simple food and wore simple clothes, who had no surplus and no savings to speak of. And among those families, I have witnessed a warmth, a laughter, a sense of belonging to one another that money cannot manufacture. I do not say this to romanticize poverty. Poverty can be cruel and grinding, and it robs people of choices they deserve to have. I say only this, that money alone does not determine the quality of a life. It is one ingredient among many, and not always the most important one. We grow up being told, in ways both spoken and unspoken, that the goal of life is to accumulate, to gather, to own. From our earliest years, we are pointed toward the horizon of more comfort, more security, more status, more proof that we are valuable and that our lives have counted for something. And this teaching is not cruel in its intention. It comes from real fears, from parents who watched loved ones suffer without resources, from memories of scarcity, from the very human desire to protect oneself and one's family from hardship. But somewhere along the way, the tool becomes the goal. What begins as a means of protection becomes an end in itself. We forget why we started working so hard. We forget that the house was supposed to be a home, not a trophy. We forget that the savings were supposed to bring peace, not obsession. We forget that the career was supposed to support a life, not replace it. There is a particular kind of sorrow that belongs to those who have achieved what the world told them to achieve and found it hollow. It is a quiet sorrow because it comes with shame. How can you complain, someone might ask, when you have so much? And so the person who has built everything the world said they should build and still feels empty learns to be silent about it. They smile at gatherings. They speak proudly of their accomplishments. And in private, they wonder what went wrong. What went wrong, perhaps, is that they were following someone else's map to a destination that was never truly their own. Let us turn now towards something different. Let us turn toward a kind of wealth that does not depend on comparison, that cannot be stolen or taxed or taken away by the rise and fall of markets. Think for a moment about what it feels like to wake up in the morning without pain, simply that, to open your eyes and feel your body as a capable, willing thing, to draw breath without struggle, to rise and move through a room and feel the ground beneath your feet with no particular difficulty. For those of us who have known illness or who have watched someone we love lose their health slowly and without mercy, we understand what it means to have this. We understand that a morning without pain is not a small thing. It is an enormous thing. It is, in its own quiet way, a form of wealth beyond measure. And yet we rarely count it. We rarely pause in the middle of an ordinary day and think, I am breathing, I am here. This body that carries me is still doing its work. We save our gratitude for the exceptional, the surprising, the rare. We forget that the ordinary is itself a miracle, if only we have the eyes to see it. Peace of mind. These three words carry more treasure than most of us allow ourselves to believe. The ability to sit in a room and feel, not happy exactly, but settled, at rest. Not pulled in 100 directions by worry or regret or longing, not rehearsing old arguments or rehearsing future disasters. Simply present, simply here. This is something that no amount of money can guarantee. There are people of extraordinary means who have never experienced it. And there are people who have very little, who sit at the end of their day in a small chair by a window and feel, genuinely, that all is well. What gives a person peace of mind? This is a question worth sitting with for a long time, because the answers are more personal than any formula can capture. But certain things appear again and again in the lives of people who seem to carry this peace. They have learned somehow to want what they have rather than to have what they want. They have found a way to meet each day with something like acceptance, not passivity, not resignation, but a gentle willingness to receive what comes without demanding that life be different than it is. They have relationships that hold them. They have memories that warm rather than wound. They have found meaning in something beyond themselves. Time. Let us speak about time, because it is the most democratically distributed thing in the universe, and yet the most unequally experienced. Everyone receives exactly 24 hours in a day. The richest person alive cannot buy a 25th hour. And yet, how differently people experience those hours. Some move through their days in a constant state of rush, always behind, always pressed, always aware of what they have not yet finished. Others move slowly, attending to the present moment, noticing what is happening around them, feeling the texture of the day as it passes. The person who has learned to inhabit time rather than race through it possesses a kind of wealth that cannot be deposited in any bank. When they sit with a friend, they are actually there. When they eat a meal, they actually taste it. When they watch the evening come, they actually see it. Their hours are full in a way that busy hours are often not. And then there are relationships. The people in our lives who have known us for a long time, who have seen our weaknesses and stayed, who have heard our stories, even the ones we have told many times and listened again with kindness, who remember our children as small or remember us as young and carry that memory alongside us as the years move on. These are not small things. These are among the greatest gifts a life can hold, and they cannot be bought. They can only be cultivated, tended to, chosen again and again over years. I think of the friendships that have lasted decades, the ones that survive distance and disagreement and long silences and misunderstandings, and the slow change that time works on all of us. There is a particular warmth in sitting across from someone who knew you when you were a different version of yourself and who loves this version too, who has watched you become who you are and does not hold your earlier selves against you, but honors the whole journey. That friendship is worth more than any title or possession. It is a form of wealth that deepens with age rather than diminishing. Let us slow down even further now. Let us go deeper into the quieter parts of what richness can mean. There is a quality of attention that some people develop, and it is almost like a secret they carry. They move through the world noticing things. Not the grand and dramatic things, but the small ones. The way light comes through a window in the late afternoon and makes everything golden for exactly a few minutes before the color changes. The smell of rain coming before it arrives. The sound a particular door makes when it opens, a sound so familiar that it means someone has come home. The taste of a food that takes you, without warning, back to a table where you once sat with people who are no longer alive. And yet in that taste they are present again, entirely and lovingly present. This is gratitude in its purest form, not the gratitude we perform, not the kind we feel obligated to express, but the spontaneous recognition that something ordinary is, in fact, extraordinary. That this moment, this unremarkable Wednesday afternoon, this cup of tea cooling on the table beside you, this particular quality of silence in the room, is something that has never existed before and will never exist again exactly this way. And you are here for it. You are the witness. You are the one receiving it. To live with this kind of awareness is to be immeasurably rich, because it means that no day is empty. Even a day of rest, even a day of quietness and small activity, holds within it a dozen moments of genuine beauty if only we turn toward them. I think of what it means to remember, not to escape into memory, not to live backward, but to carry the past alongside the present with warmth and tenderness. To have a life that is full enough of meaning that the remembering of it brings comfort. To sit quietly and think, I have loved people. I have worked at things that mattered to me. I have seen beautiful places. I have laughed until I could not breathe. I have been moved by music. I have been surprised by kindness. I have held children in my arms and felt the impossible weight and lightness of a small life depending on you. I have been forgiven when I did not deserve it. I have been loved not because I was perfect, but in spite of the fact that I was not. To be able to think those thoughts is a form of wealth that no catastrophe can take from you. It is already yours. It lives inside you. And the older we become, the richer we can be in this particular way because we carry more. We have more to draw from. We have more memories with depth. We have more understanding of how things turn out and how people surprise you and how life, for all its difficulty, also contains a tremendous amount of grace. Now, I want to speak about something that feels important, and I want to do it gently because it is not meant as a judgment. I want to speak about the chasing. Almost all of us have done it, that relentless forward motion towards something we believe will finally bring satisfaction. The next thing, the next achievement, the next level, the house, and then the bigger house, the job, and then the better job, the trip, and then the next trip, the recognition, and then more recognition. We move through our lives with our eyes trained always on what is ahead, what is coming, what we have not yet secured, and in doing so, we pass through whole seasons of our lives barely noticing they are happening. There is a particular tragedy in the person who spends their working years thinking that happiness waits on the other side of retirement, and then arrives at retirement and does not know what to do with themselves. There is a similar tragedy in the person who spends their children's growing years so focused on building the family's security that they look up one day and the children are grown and gone, and they think, "I was there. I was in the same house, but was I truly present?" These are not failures of character, they are failures of attention. They happen to good people, to loving people, to people who were genuinely trying to do right by those they loved, but they happen, and they leave a particular kind of ache. Not the ache of having done something wrong, but the ache of having been somewhere without quite arriving. The ones who seem to escape this, or at least to resist it, are the ones who have learned somehow to trust the present. To believe that this moment, this ordinary, unremarkable moment, is not merely a waiting room for a better moment to come. It is the actual thing. It is the life itself, happening right now, asking to be received. I have observed that people who feel full inside, regardless of what they possess, tend to share certain qualities. They are genuinely interested in the lives of others. They listen more than they speak. They are not obsessed with proving themselves because they have made a quiet peace with who they are. They do not need applause to feel that what they do has value. They can sit with discomfort without being destroyed by it. They can lose things, even important things, and grieve them and continue. They are not rigid, they bend. And perhaps, most importantly, they have found something that gives their life a sense of meaning beyond the accumulation of days. A purpose that connects them to something larger than themselves. It might be faith. It might be the raising of children or grandchildren. It might be a craft they have practiced for decades. It might be service to their community. It might be the quiet tending of a garden. Whatever it is, it gives shape to their days and makes their effort feel worthwhile. Not because someone is watching, but because the thing itself is worth doing. Contrast this with the person who has gathered everything and still feels something missing, who has traveled widely but carried their restlessness with them, who has worked hard and achieved much but cannot explain even to themselves why none of it quite satisfies, who sits in a beautiful room and feels alone, who is surrounded by admirers but has no one who truly knows them. This person is not to be scorned, they are to be understood, because the condition they are in is the natural result of following the instructions the world gave them and discovering that the instructions were incomplete. They were told what to acquire. They were not told how to be. We are nearing a turning point now, and I want to arrive at it slowly, because this is the part that matters most, and it should not be rushed. If you have been listening to all of this with some recognition, with some sense that what I am describing is familiar, I want to offer you this gentle invitation. Not a command, not a prescription, just an invitation. Sit for a moment with your own life, not with what it was supposed to be, not with what you wished it had become, not with the paths not taken or the opportunities missed. Sit with what it actually is, with what you actually have, right now. What are the things in your life, when you set aside all comparison, that feel genuinely good? Not triumphant, not exceptional, but simply good. The kind of good that does not require anyone else to confirm it. The kind that is just there, quietly waiting to be noticed. Maybe it is the fact that you are here, that you have lived long enough to carry stories within you, that you have weathered things you once thought might break you, and you are still standing or sitting or lying in your bed listening to these words, and you are still here. That itself is something. Maybe it is a person, someone whose voice you could recognize anywhere, someone who has walked alongside you for years, who knows the texture of your silences, who can tell from across a room whether you are tired or sad or simply quiet. Someone with whom you have shared meals and troubles and private jokes that no one else would understand. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how many people in the world are longing for exactly that? Maybe it is something you have learned to do well, something that took years of practice and patience and the willingness to be bad at it before you were good. The knowledge that lives in your hands or your mind that no one else can take from you. The baker who knows by feel when the dough is ready. The gardener who knows which plants will thrive and which need tending. The storyteller who knows how to hold a room. These are forms of wealth that compound with time. Maybe it is simply the capacity for pleasure in small things. The cup of tea, the particular chair by the window, the book you are reading, the bird that visits the garden, the telephone call from someone you love. These pleasures are available to almost anyone, at almost any stage of life, and they are not small pleasures if you give them your full attention. They are enormous. They are the actual substance of a life lived well. I want to ask you something, and I want you to take your time with it. Think of the moments in your life when you felt, without analyzing it, genuinely rich. Not wealthy in the monetary sense. Rich in the deeper sense. Full, sufficient, complete. Where were you? What were you doing? Who, if anyone, was with you? I suspect those moments were rarely in front of a bank statement. I suspect they were moments of connection, moments of beauty, moments when you were fully present to something that mattered, moments when the gap between what you had and what you wanted closed, and you were simply in the fullness of what was. Those moments are not accidents. They are available. They can be cultivated. They arise more often in lives that are oriented toward them, in lives that have made room for slowness and attention and presence. The question of who is truly rich does not have a single answer, and it would be wrong of me to pretend otherwise. But if I were to say something that has felt true across many years of living and observing and failing and beginning again, it would be something like this. The truly rich person is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least in order to feel complete. Not needs in the sense of physical necessities, those are real and important and must be met, but needs in the sense of external proof, validation, status, the constant reassurance that one's life is measuring up. The truly rich person has done something difficult and quiet and rarely praised. They have made peace with themselves. Not a perfect peace, not a peace without doubt or struggle, but a working peace. A peace that says, I am who I am. I have lived as I have lived. I have loved and failed and tried again, and I am not ashamed of the whole of it. The truly rich person has found something to love in each day, even a difficult day, even a day of limitation or loneliness or physical pain. They have not done this by pretending the difficulty is not there. They have done it by learning to hold both things at once, the difficulty and the beauty, the loss and the gift, the ending and the memory of the beginning. The truly rich person knows how to receive. They can accept kindness without deflecting it. They can accept help without shame. They can accept love without wondering what it will cost them. And perhaps most quietly and most powerfully, the truly rich person knows how to give without keeping count. Their generosity flows from a feeling of sufficiency rather than from a calculation of what they might get in return. They give time, they give attention, they give forgiveness, they give the benefit of the doubt because they have enough of these things inside them and they are not afraid of running out. This is what the old man in the garden had. Not money, not status, not a record of achievement that anyone would read about, but something quietly magnificent, a completeness in himself, a kind of inner life that was furnished and warm and did not require constant additions from the outside world to remain that way. He had everything he needed. I wonder sometimes what would happen if we began to measure our lives differently, not by what we had accumulated, but by how we had used our hours. Not by what we had owned, but by who had felt loved in our presence. Not by how far we had traveled, but by how deeply we had arrived in the places we visited and the moments we were given. If we measured this way, many of us would discover that we are far richer than we believed. That the years, which sometimes feel like they have slipped through our fingers without leaving enough behind, have in fact deposited within us something substantial. A texture of experience, a capacity for empathy born from our own suffering, a gratitude sharpened by loss, a love made deeper by the knowledge that time is finite and therefore precious. The evening comes slowly in certain seasons. It does not arrive all at once. First, the quality of the light begins to shift. Then, the shadows lengthen and soften. Then, the air changes its temperature and something settles. And you sit somewhere and you notice it happening, this slow and beautiful arrival of darkness, and something in you settles too. That is what I hope for each person who has spent time with these reflections. A kind of settling, a quiet acknowledgement that the life you have, for all its imperfection and incompleteness, is a life, a real one, filled with real moments and real people and real grace that you may not have noticed fully, but that was there all along, waiting for your attention. You do not have to earn more, achieve more, or become more in order to deserve the feeling of richness that I am describing. You do not have to be a certain kind of person or have lived a certain kind of life. You need only to stop for a moment, in whatever room you are in, at whatever hour finds you, and ask yourself honestly, what do I already have that is truly good? The answer may surprise you. It may come slowly or all at once. It may bring with it some tears, because sometimes recognizing abundance also means recognizing how long we went without seeing it clearly. But let those tears come if they need to. They are not tears of loss. They are tears of arrival. You are perhaps richer than you know, not in the way the world counts riches, in the way that matters, in the quiet, unhurried, unlisted way that a life fully inhabited and gently held begins, eventually, to feel like enough. And enough, truly felt, truly rested in, is everything.